with that, I'm going to go ahead and start our meeting. Just one quick announcement before I do. Hopefully our next meeting, we're going to go to a hybrid model, which means that the public will be able to either attend in person or virtually, if all goes well with the technology. So that'll be our next meeting in April. And with that, I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. Rebecca, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Beckman?
Here.
Councilmember Mongan?
Here.
Councilmember Ravazio?
Here.
Vice Mayor Lee?
Here.
And Mayor Casissa?
Here. And with that, if we can salute the flag, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And at this time, excuse me, we're going to go to 1A. I'm moving my mayor's report up from 7 just to read a statement on behalf of the town of Corte Madera related to, excuse me, the activity that's going on in Ukraine. So again, this is a statement on behalf of the town of Corte Madera. As Russia continues its invasion of Ukraine, we are distraught and saddened for those facing widespread devastation and humanitarian crisis. Our thoughts go out to all those that have been impacted by this war, including those in our local communities that have family, friends, and loved ones that have been directly or indirectly affected by this war. At this point in time, I'm also going to direct staff to publish a statement on the town's website, social media site, and any other applicable media site. And just one quick note is, I realize by doing the statement, I'm somewhat in uncharted waters, as the town usually doesn't get involved with world affairs or events. But when I read the newspaper and I look at the news on TV and just seeing the devastation, the loss of innocent lives, people being displaced, not just from their homes, but having to leave their country, it just seems issuing a statement like this, it's the right thing to do. And just one last thing, hopefully, this is the last statement this kind that the town will have to make. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and defer the rest of my report back to number 7 when we get there. And I'm going to go to item number 2. We're going to open it up for public comment. At this point in time, this is anybody from the public wishing to speak on a topic that is not on our agenda. Please raise your hand. We do have one hand raised. And then same time, Rebecca, if you can check emails to see if any emails have come in. And if you can bring over Melissa Dugan, please.
Hello, Melissa, you should be able to unmute yourself. I will begin the timer when you begin to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share my concerns regarding the housing element plan. My name is Melissa Duggan, a Chapman Park homeowner of a single family home on the 600 block of Meadowsweet Drive. I would like to voice my concern and objection of including in the housing element plan 601 Tamalpais as an opportunity site for potential development and rezoning to increase density that could allow at least 10 dwelling units be built on that parcel. This inclusion ignores some of the town's own parcel selection criteria for the housing element plan. One criteria was to minimize physical impacts to existing residences and locate outside of established residential neighborhoods. Our block of Meadowsweet Drive is zoned as low-density residential. This is the only parcel being considered that has front-facing single-family residences within 20 to 28 and a half feet of the parcel. Indicating the 601 Tamalpais parcel as a, quote, neighborhood corridor, unquote, completely ignores the tremendous impact it would have on an immediately adjacent front-facing single-family neighborhood. We are not a corridor. We are seniors, young families, working families, homeowners in Corte Madera. The second criteria was to limit vehicular traffic through local residential streets. This block of Meadowsweet Drive already has 10 single-family residences on a narrow substandard width of road. Part of the street in question is one-way only, and others are just single lane only, with high-speed traffic coming off of Tamalpais Drive, and has been brought to the attention of the town several times prior as a traffic safety hazard. The closing of the exit of Meadowsweet at Sanford has created additional unintended traffic impacts at the corner of Meadowsweet and Lakeside Drive, with increased commercial and personal vehicles turning around further east on Meadowsweet and heading back west to get to Tamalpais at Lakeside, instead of driving all the way down and looping around and back up to the Casa Buena exit. Multiple near accidents and pedestrian safety have been impacted by this additional burden to a small street. Adding additional residences and the accompanying vehicular traffic will only compound the problem and further impact public safety. The third criteria has to do with your designated parcel size. This parcel is not within the 1/2 acre to 10 acre criteria. This is 0.47 acres and is bisected by Lakeside Drive as 2 small parcels. You're using a split parcel to achieve a parcel size that you want to now rezone to increase density. This defies all stated criteria. We're a unified group of homeowners and residents in a wonderful neighborhood. We will be sharing further our concerns and alternatives with Adam Wolf in order to target these 10 dwelling units to a more appropriate parcel. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you, Melissa. I don't see any other hands raised. Rebecca, do we get any comments in the email?
Thank you, Mayor Casissa. Yes, we received 3 emailed public comments that were requested to read out loud. They have been emailed to the council and uploaded to the town's website and linked on the agenda for the public to view. I will do my best to read them now. Some are longer and I don't know if I can read them in 3 minutes, but they are on the website. Email number 1 says, my name is Patrick Duggan. My wife and I own a single family dwelling on the 600 block of Meadow Sweet Drive in Chapman Park. I would like to add my concerns and objections to including the 601 Tamalpais property as an opportunity site for potential development in the housing element plan, as well as the rezoning of the parcel to increase density that would allow multiple dwelling units to be built there. This parcel does not meet critical specifications of the selection criteria for the housing element plan, limit vehicular traffic through local residential streets, minimize physical impacts to existing residences, and locate outside of established residential neighborhoods. And the property is less than 1/2 acre in size and in 2 separate parcels. Traffic density and flow along the western blocks of Meadow Sweet Drive have been problematic for residents for decades. Eastbound traffic exiting Tamalpais and Meadow Sweet from the west are consistently above the posted speed limit despite the modification of the curbs for crosswalk upgrades. There have been conversations over the years with various public officers, police, fire, and town to mitigate the issue with speed bumps or rumble strips, or even potential of closing the entry point onto Meadow Sweet Drive. Responses included comments that whatever amendment was proposed, it would be very difficult to implement due to outstanding concerns over emergency services access via Meadow Sweet Drive and overall traffic flow on eastbound Tamalpais. These concerns have been further amplified recently by the rerouting of traffic at the junction of Sanford Street and Meadow Sweet Drive. This has increased traffic flow westbound on Meadow Sweet Drive to the confusion of the drivers, many of whom end up driving the wrong way westbound into the one-way portion of Meadow Sweet Drive. These drivers either end up backing up the length of the street or simply and dangerously entering Tamalpais at the entry point. The other entry into the neighborhood is Lakeside Drive between Tamalpais and Meadow Sweet Drive. This portion of Lakeside Drive is a short half-block street which is barely able to handle 2-way traffic. Larger trucks and semis have difficulty making the turn onto Lakeside from westbound Meadow Sweet Drive to return to Tamalpais. It is not uncommon to see a semi-hauler or car carrier back up eastbound on Meadow Sweet Drive for blocks. Recently, we have had an uptick in code enforcement patrols on Meadow Sweet Drive. Our cars have been marked and occasionally cited for being parked for more than 3 days in one place. I understand the regulations in place and in fact, remember the campaign to put them into law. They were meant to suppress parking RVs long-term and the dumping of cars on town streets. Additional concerns included the availability of street parking for commuters so as to encourage the use of Golden Gate Transit to get to San Francisco. The bus stop for those buses is on Tamalpais Drive, just across from Meadow Sweet Drive and our homes. Parking in the neighborhood would be further reduced by the development of the 601 property. This would be an additional negative to traffic flow and increased congestion. The current traffic conditions in and around our Meadow Sweet Drive neighborhood are challenging enough to live with as they are. There's probably another page of this email that I can't finish reading at this time, but it is uploaded to the town's website. And it's linked on the agenda under open time for public comment. The next one is from Allison Jones. And it says, Thank you for the opportunity to share my concerns with the potential rezoning and multifamily residential development in our neighborhood. There are a few things I want the town to consider as we explore optimal placement for additional housing units in Corte Madera relative to the current selection of 601 Tamalpais. The 600 block of Meadowsweet Drive is a residential neighborhood made up of single-family homes in the Chapman Park neighborhood. Because the street is narrower than a typical residential street, our properties are only tens of feet from the parcels and would be impacted by the construction of multi-story properties located within 20 to 30 feet of our homes in many ways. I am concerned that increasing density will add more cars and more traffic to an already dangerous neighborhood street. This development will add traffic, not only from new residents, but additional delivery vehicles and visitors parking in an already impacted neighborhood. In pre-COVID times, the church down the street utilized the parking lot for the congregants, and even with the use of that lot, which is now closed, parking for residents was frequently challenging. For many years, we've shared our concerns with the town about high-speed traffic coming off of Tamalpais Drive, jeopardizing the safety of small children and seniors who live on our block. The solution to cut off the exit access from Meadowsweet by Bank of America did not help the situation. In fact, it added to the traffic and dangerous conditions for pedestrians and motorists at the corner of Meadowsweet and Lakeside Drive, which cars and trucks now frequently use for access to Tamalpais. This parcel selection goes against the town's criteria for minimizing physical impacts to existing neighborhoods and the guidance to select locations for development outside of established residential neighborhoods. While the town references Tamalpais Drive as the parcel address, the impact will be felt entirely by the residential neighborhood of the 600 block of Meadowsweet Drive. Finally, and probably most importantly, is the issue of the size of the property. The parcel has been identified as being 0.47 acres, which is less than the town criteria of a half an acre or more for qualification to be an opportunity site. When you consider that the parcel is divided by Lakeside Drive, it really is two much smaller parcels and should be considered as such, thus removed from consideration. Thank you, Allison Jones. Excuse me. And the final email is from Justin Nunez, who says, "Dear valued council members, as a longtime resident and homeowner at 629 Meadowsweet Drive, I am writing to express my concerns and objections to the parcel at 601 Meadowsweet Drive, former Daphne Funeral Home and adjacent parking lot, to being included in the town's housing plan as a potential site for high-density housing development. The 600 block of Meadowsweet is a narrow residential street in the Chapman Park neighborhood that already has a dangerous traffic problem, especially since the recent changes were made at Bank of America. This has resulted in commercial vehicles, including 60-foot car carriers from Tesla and Jaguar Land Rover, driving down our narrow residential street and attempting to exit onto Tamalpais Drive via Lakeside Drive at all hours of the day. Increasing housing density will add more cars and more traffic to an already impacted narrow neighborhood street. I also have major concerns regarding the impact of high density housing in a residential neighborhood like Chapman Park, with the vast majority being single family homes. Views and daylight will definitely be obstructed, and ultimately our property values will suffer. Finally, all of the parcels being selected for potential development, I would like to point out this is the only parcel that appears to have front facing existing single family homes opposite it. Sincerely, Justin Nunez, Meadowsweet Drive. That concludes the emails received via public comment email.
Thank you. And I don't see any other hands raised. So at this point in time, I'll go ahead and close out the public comment portion of our meeting. We don't have any presentations tonight. We'll move to number 4, which is the consent calendar. These are items that can be approved by a single motion. They have been previously discussed. Any member of the town council, staff, or public may request that item be removed for further discussion. So at this point in time, is there anybody from the town council, staff, or the public wishes to have an item removed for further discussion? I don't see any hands raised. Rebecca, did we get any emails in?
No, we did not receive any emailed public comment.
Thank you. As we don't have any hands raised, I will go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to council for a motion to approve consent items 4A through 4F.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Charles. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Bob. If there's no further discussion, I will go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan,
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Yes.
Mayor Casissa.
Yes, and just one thing to note, a big thanks to RJ for finishing up the project on Paradise Drive, the sidewalk widening project. I've seen a lot of kids using that sidewalk. It's 100% better than obviously what it was before. So congratulations, RJ, on getting that done. At this point in time, we're going to have one procedural item. I'm going to move up business item 6A to this point of time of the meeting. And after this, we'll go ahead and move to the public hearing. If no council members object with that, again, moving up item 6A, I'll go ahead and move it up. And this item is to award a contract to lowest responsible bidder, which is Alton Construction, regarding the City Hall project. And also we're looking at 2 other service contracts that will be awarded also. So at this point in time, I am going to turn it over to RJ for his staff report. I just want to note that we did get some late correspondence in regarding a bid protest. I think Rebecca uploaded that around 3 o'clock this morning. So that information is out on our website. And with that, RJ, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Casissa, and good evening, council members. So after 3 years of community engagement and multiple workshops and tons of design work, we're here to potentially commence the construction phase, which is very exciting. Most recently in January, council approved plans for advertisement. And while out to bid, there was a little nuance I did want to discuss, where as part of obtaining the building permits, there was a suggestion to make some slight improvements to the overall structural design, which previously we had set it as a category 2, which is a pretty common typical structure, but with some additional design work, we were able to achieve a risk category 3, which is comparable to schools, universities, and other critical facilities. So potentially this building has that higher standard that I think is always the intent of this project, despite some of the resiliency measures we had in place prior. That net increase in cost was about $15,000 in design, and then estimated to be about $50,000 in construction bid costs. And as staff, we thought that was a prudent measure to move forward in the last month and a half. Furthermore, on March 31st, and I'm going to share my screen, we did receive 6 bids here. Hope everyone can see this table, where the lowest responsible and responsive bidder was Alton Construction, followed by several other contractors. And shortly after receiving those bids, we did have a bid protest come in from Hawley Construction. And so that protest letter is included in the staff report attachments that was uploaded recently. Also a response letter from Alton Construction themselves. The protest letter did cite some bid irregularities and other items deemed or alleged as incomplete. But the nature of them was things like missing phone numbers on subcontractor lists, and one of the Department of Industrial Relations registration numbers was incorrect, but staff has evaluated these, our town attorney has evaluated these, and we do not believe that they had any bearing on the overall bid amounts and meet the spirit of public contract code. And I can, at any point, Amy can jump in if she wants to elaborate or discuss further. Beyond that, the overall fiscal impact section is here listed. So bids came in below estimate. Our prior estimate was 11.4 million for the base bid, plus 240,000 for the additive bid item. This bid came in at 10.485 million. So well under, and the additive came slightly in higher, but a net amount below the overall estimate of roughly $900,000. So with the additional contingency and these other services that are essential to kind of overseeing the overall construction, with the keeping the architect on board for what we call architect engineering services, and also their whole project team, including their structural engineers and others, as well as bringing on another firm who specializes in construction management to oversee the day-to-day work, and that's Mac 5. It rounds out to an overall estimated cost of $12.47 million. And unless Amy wants to jump in now, we'll just turn it over to council for questions, and we can get into any of the details.
Just really quick before I open for questions. Unless I read this right, I think it's just a typo on the 10% construction contingency. It's showing 10 million.
Yes, yeah, that is a typo. One too many zeros, or two.
Just want to make sure.
Zeros. Yes.
With that, are there any town council member have questions? I can't see my full screen.
I will let me end the share screen.
Mr. Mayor, may I add can I just add a couple other comments,
Sure, go ahead.
if I may? So I just, this is a big momentous day for us. As RJ said, this is 3 years of all of our lives really working to bring a project forward that we could all be proud of. I can't say enough from the Planning Commission staff and the council that we're here today. The lowest responsible bidder came in almost $1 million under what our engineer's estimate was. Can you pull up the fiscal impact for me, RJ? Because I do want to point some things out to the council. So with that, we thought it was prudent to add the additive bid with the solar panel, the solar array of 335. When you go to the 10% contingency, again, it's $1,820,000 for a total of $11.9 million for this project. As you go down, we added extra, architectural and engineering construction from Kathy Architects as we move forward. And we also brought in Mac 5. So the total cost of this project right now is at $12.4 million. Not part of this project in front of you. There's still, again, staff met with our finance subcommittee, and we've set aside $1 million budget right now for all furnishings, equipment, cybersecurity and technology for this new building. That is a high number that's been set aside. It's been approved by council. It's in the equipment replacement fund. So as we move forward over the next year, we will start to itemize those needs, and we'll bring those through to council through a process, through the budgeting process for you to approve that budget. But just as we stand today, if you were to approve this bid with this in front of you today with the fiscal impact, it's a $12.4 million project that includes the contingency fund. On top of that, there's another $1 million set aside for equipment, furnishings, and technology. So right now, just full disclosure to the council and the community, this is currently a $13.5 million project. The other part that I want to mention, we're really excited about the lowest responsible bidder in Alton Construction. Staff has been familiar with a lot. We had all of the contractors were really amazing in this bid process, and we were really lucky, and we were really appreciative that they showed an interest in our town project. I can't say enough about all of them. Alton Construction is very known to staff in the county. They come from, I think they originate in Richmond, but since 2008, when your staff has been paying attention to projects, I believe they're in the top 2 bidders for the Central Marin Police Authority building. They also have done a number of projects in Marin County. We've actually reached out and gotten some reference checks with Novato. They did a public works project for Novato, the city of Novato. They also did the public safety building for Sausalito. They did the firehouses for San Rafael recently. They come highly recommended. And we're just really, really excited for you to receive this bid and to consider it tonight. And we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Todd, just a high level question. So it sounds like you've done significant due diligence on them.
Yeah, absolutely. So at a staff level, we also brought in our contract construction management in Mac 5. And so Mac 5 and our architects, Cappy Architects, are also familiar with a lot of the contractors that submitted bids for us. And we've also, RJ can speak to that, but they also come highly recommended with both our architect and Mac 5 Construction, who have done a number of projects with Alton Construction. So yes, we've done our due diligence from a recommendation standpoint.
Yeah, and that's correct. And if I'm not mistaken, they also built Fire Station 13 here in Corte Madera off Paradise Drive. So they also have that local experience.
Okay, thanks. And then RJ, you feel comfortable with the numbers and also with them?
Absolutely. Yeah, they have all the qualifications and skills that you'd want in a contractor, and the numbers coming in, well below estimate. We're very much an exciting thing to see.
Are there any other questions from town council members? Yeah, Eli, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Todd and RJ, for doing the due diligence on those contractors there. I know that the lowest bidder is often, but not always, the best choice. And I'm glad to see that in this case, based on the work they've done for our fellow Marin cities and towns, it looks like they are. So that's fantastic. My question is, I think for you, RJ, would you be able to just speak a little bit more about this upgrade from Category 2 to Category 3 and what that means for the community, specifically in the event of some sort of disaster?
Yeah, absolutely. So as mentioned before, we did have a Category 2, and we did have resiliency measures. So we had a more robust structural framing system, more non-combustible, kind of your home hardening type facilities to kind of assist with wildfire, Class A roof. So many of those things are already built in. But when you talk about California Building Code, they want to, if they're going to define it, it's this risk category. And so by spending those additional funds, we're able to get to a risk category 3, which let me read out the staff report. They define it as structures that represent a substantial hazard to human life in the event of failure. And so really that investment was on the seismic side of things. So for earthquake resiliency. But basically, yeah, if this structure goes down, town staff, town resources, many of those important things that are important to, what we do here in town are compromised. And so even though that was a voluntary measure, based on the cost to get there, it seemed like a very much a smart thing to do, given our intent is to serve the community in times of need. Power shutdowns, wildfire, whatever it may be, that we want that to be a resource. And that's what we've heard from you all and the community as well. So we thought that was a good investment.
Thanks. So just to clarify my understanding, this was basically a smallish added investment that's going to make the new town hall a more survivable refuge for staff and for members of the community in the event of a disaster. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Any other question from town council members? Okay, at this time I'll go ahead and open it. Oh yeah, Leila, go ahead.
Thanks. Just a quick one. Can you explain the additive bid item? I was kind of surprised that was included separately in people's bids and the amount varied. I thought it was just like a flat amount that would get added on regardless of the bid for the overall project.
Yeah, so that was a choice by staff when we put it out to bid. That was the way we structured it, to have this kind of minimum project or this base bid project plus this additional component to do solar and battery backups. And it was really kind of twofold. One, there was we did get grant funds to put solar and battery backups on the community center and courtyard through Cal OES. And so there was part of this, hey, maybe there'll be another grant source out there. And I've tried to dig into that, and they're keeping their cards close to their vest. So it'd be kind of a gamble to wait and see on that. Separately, it was, hey, if we ever got in a pinch with bids, they came in high, we would have the ability to do the base bid and then 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, do what we always planned on doing and having the solar battery backup, but it just gave us a little bit of financial flexibility. So it was, yeah, staff's choice to structure it in those two pieces, but in particular, given estimates came in where they did, it makes sense to us to have one kind of seamless project where we get everything we want kind of all under one group and one contractor.
Thanks, Leila. Anything else? Charles? I think you're on mute.
The architect in me just can't help himself. For the category 3, are you doing that by basically the cross braces and the steel, making them so that they buckle, but then you can pull them out and replace them over time? Is that how you're doing it?
So a lot of it is so when you talk about seismic resilience, it's right. It's that lateral movement in an earthquake. And so some of the things are on the simple side. Things like when you have we call them shear walls, that's what resists that lateral movement. It's having more nails at tighter spacings and thicker plywood so it moves less. In some areas, those shear walls went from, it turned into like a concrete CMU wall, but basically just beefing those shear wall elements up a little bit so they move less in an earthquake.
Okay. Yeah.
And which will result in less cracking or breaking or other things in
right. Yeah, the categories are well defined. I used to have to do that for the airport, and in that instance, they want it operational right after the event, and no basically going in and patching cracks or anything like that. So it's one step below that, which really sets us up for basically still being able to do disaster relief and run the town in the interim, but then eventually you have to come back in and basically probably do a little bit of work and inspect it to make sure that what the damage is, right? And at category 2, you don't have that option. So I think it's the right move, definitely.
Thanks, Charles. I have a question, Todd. It's probably related to you on the financing part. Can you just describe the process on the bond part of it, the 7.6 million, what those are going to look like, maybe like the debt service? Because I know interest rates are starting to go up. That's part 1. And then part 2, I think there's another $3.5 million from the general fund. There's also some money from sales tax measure. I assume there's no impact on any of our other projects across town that it would have an effect on by using that money for this, correct?
Great questions, Mr. Mayor. Yes, RJ, can you put up the fiscal impact one more time for the council? So this is one of our goals at the direction of the council was as you said, Mr. Mayor, was not to impact those promised capital improvement projects over a 5-year span. And so these numbers actually do that for us. And so we met with the finance subcommittee. We brought something to council last month. Basically, we financed it's $7.7 million. That interest rate is locked in. It's actually 2.8%. So it's at 2.8%. So we are good there. So the first 7.7 million of the project will be financed. We also are utilizing 3.5 million from the general fund. This is really the surpluses we've enjoyed over the last few years. We're going to put that 3.5 million to the project. And then there's a remaining 1.3 million set aside from the sales tax measure. Originally, when we started this conversation last year, we were looking at setting aside $3 to $4 million over 2.5 fiscal years. With that number, we were still positioned not to affect any projects that we promised the community. With what is before you today, we are really in good hands. We're going to release that additional $2.5 million to the sales tax measure this fiscal year for council to consider for other projects. We also have an additional about $1.7 million in an additional contingency fund sitting in the general fund should we need it as this project proceeds. So we, from a fiscal standpoint, we're in good shape moving forward. And again, I think staff met the criteria from council, use those general fund surpluses before you touch the sales tax measure. And we were able to cut that, the use of the sales tax measure by almost 65%. So we're really excited about that.
Thanks, and good job on the 2.8% on the rate, super low. Are there any other questions from town council members? Rebecca, I don't know if you're RJ, if you can bring it back to full screen so I can see everybody and then open it up for public comment. So thank you. And with that, if there's no other further questions, I'll go ahead and open it for public comment. If anybody from the public wishes to speak on this topic, please raise your hand. And in the meantime, Rebecca, do we get any emails in on this topic?
Just going to refresh one more time. We did not receive any emailed public comments, and I'll give everyone another few seconds, but I am not seeing any raised hands either.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I will go ahead and close out public comment and bring it back.
Actually, there's a raised hand.
Oh, yes, if you can bring over Mr. Altman, please.
Mr. Austin, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yep, okay. Good evening, this is Mr. Alton. Thank you, the mayor and the council for moving this up. I'm actually at the Italian Athletic Club in the city tonight, and my uncle's really mad. I need to get back down there to dinner. So, but just a little bit about our company. We started in San Rafael, and I was born and raised in Marin County. We've done. I was talking to RJ earlier. We did with David Bracken about, I think it was 2000, Fire Station 13. Actually, he only knows that because I told him that today. But we've done Marin Primary, Hall, Neil, what else? The Tiburon Library. We did Fire Station 57, 52, Public Safety Building in Marin City, the Housing Authority in Sausalito. We've been in business 27 years. We don't need the project. We want the project. We look at that. We were excited about this project. We work with Ron Cappy. He's a great architect. ZFA, they do a lot of design build with us. And we're excited to work for you guys. And I can guarantee you'll have a great project. It'll be fun to work with you guys, and we're looking forward to it. And I just want to thank everybody.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I can't remember if tonight is Stag Night at the SFIAC. If so, enjoy your dinner.
Yeah, it is. Appreciate it.
Thanks, enjoy it.
Thank you.
With that, I don't see any other hands raised, so I will go ahead and close out public comment and bring it back to town council for discussion and a possible motion. Bob, go ahead, Bob, start us off.
I think this is great. I mean, clearly this is a well-known company. They're local. They've done lots of terrific buildings in the county. I know that staff is really enthusiastic about them. So I move that we authorize the Director of Public Works to award a construction contract to the lowest responsible bidder, Alton Construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles is going to second that, but I'm going to go to Amy for a minute because she had her hand raised.
Yes, I'm going to ask council to make two motions tonight. The first motion would be a motion to reject the bid protest. And after that, assuming that motion carries, then we'll take the motion on approving the contract.
So let's do this. Let's go back to you, Bob. Do you want to make the motion to reject the bid protest?
I will do that.
Thank you. Is there a second? Charles, second that. Is there any other further discussion? So on that portion, I'll go ahead and call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan,
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Yes.
and Mayor Sousa.
Yes. And with that, Bob, why don't you go ahead, move forward with the other part two of this.
Part two, authorize the Director of Public Works to award the contract to the lowest bidder, Alton Construction.
Thank you. Is there a second? Charles seconds. Any other further discussion?
Can we make it a friendly amendment to approve the contracts as stated on the agenda?
Yes. Amendment accepted.
And Charles seconds that again. If there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. I'm sorry, Eli, go ahead.
Thanks, Fred. I just wanted to say real quick, the fantastic project, the need for the residents and for the town is clear. The contractor looked great. The bids are very reasonable. The financing is in place with, not coming at expense of any other projects. Fantastic. I just wanted to give an additional shout out to the entire project team, because I know that especially in this market, it would not have been surprising at all for these bids to come in way over our engineer's estimate. And I know that, as an architect, that when your bids come in at or below your estimate, and it's not because anything is deficient as they aren't here, it's usually a sign that your contract documents have been really well put together. So I just wanted to thank the project team for doing what looks to be a stellar job and getting us teed up here for a project that's coming in, fingers crossed, under budget, it looks like. And that is all I wanted to add.
And I'll second that.
I think we're probably all in agreement on that one. Thanks, Eli. Great comments. So with that, if there's no other further discussion, I'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan,
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Aye.
and Mayor Casissa.
Yes. Hey, RJ, when do you get started with demo?
That cut out just a second there, wasn't it?
What's that?
I cut out for a second there.
Oh, I asked you when demo is going to start. Right?
Hopefully in about a month.
Good job.
About a month.
All right, thanks. Okay, with that, I'm going to defer the rest of business items. I'm going to bring us back to public hearing 5A. This is an appeal of Planning Commission decision regarding permit amendment application PL 210084 regarding modification of a previously approved design review application at 78 Granada Drive. The Planning Commission approved 10 of 11 modifications requested by the owners of 78 Granada Drive. We're going to hear two appeals at the same time tonight. Appellant number one is Mark and Christine Stolman of 82 Granada. They request reversal of the Planning Commission's decision approving the 10 modifications. And the second appeal is appellant number two, which is Chad and Sarah Gerber of 78 Granada. They're requesting reversal of the Planning Commission's decision denying one modification, the addition of the upper level bay window. Before I turn it over to staff for their report, a couple procedural items. Has any town council members, including Vice Mayor and myself, had any ex parte communications regarding the appeal with either party? And communication includes, but is not limited to, verbal conversations, phone messages, emails, or texts. Any ex parte communications? Go ahead, Eli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I visited both appellants last Friday, April 1st, I believe. And then I also visited the Gerbers again yesterday, April 4th, to see the new story pole and fence line that they had put up based on a proposed new fence. And then in both cases, both applicants, spoke to me, gave me verbally, their perspective, and I did not, make any substantive comments one way or the other. I just basically received information from the applicants.
Okay, thanks. And while you brought that up, if everybody can just raise their hand if you did do at least one site visit, I want to say last week. Okay, and then did anybody go back and visit a second time with respect to the fence besides Eli? No? Okay. And again, besides what Eli spoke on, I will, since nobody besides Eli acknowledged, then I guess there was no ex parte communications. The last piece of this also, is there any relationships with any party that any council members, including the vice mayor and the mayor, myself, need to be disclosed? Okay, I do have one relationship I will disclose, and that is several years ago, I served with Christine Stolman on the Marin Estates NRG. We're founding members, and that was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. That NRG we haven't met in a number of years. So based upon that, my relationship with her with respect to serving on NRG, I believe it doesn't affect my ability to make a decision on this issue. Okay, and with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Martha and also to Adam for their staff report. And the way we're going to tee this up on a high level is we'll turn it over to staff for their report. We'll get each of the appellants, I think 10 minutes or so for their statements, bring it back to town council for any questions of either staff or the appellants, open it up for public comment, bring it back to the appellants for closing statements, and then we'll bring it back to town council for a discussion. And so with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to staff. Sorry, it's a little bit long-winded.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the Town Council. I will begin sharing my screen. Okay, as the mayor mentioned, this evening you are considering two separate appeals. Appellant 1, Mark Stolman and Christine Martin Stolman of 82 Granada Drive, request reversal of the Planning Commission's decision approving 10 modifications. And Appellant 2, Chad and Sarah Gerber of 78 Granada Drive, request reversal of the Planning Commission decision denying the one modification, the upper level bay window. The project site is located at 78 Granada Drive. The original developer created flat lots that stepped up Granada Drive. Located to the west at 74 Granada Drive is 74 Granada Drive, which is at a lower elevation. And located to the east is 78 Granada Drive, which is at a higher elevation. The Planning Commission approved a design review application in March 2019 for a 1,196 square foot addition to an existing two-story residence at 78 Granada Drive. The Planning Commission added a condition of approval to the resolution that required the height of the taller ridge to be reduced by a foot and the height of the lower ridge to be reduced by 6 inches. The Planning Commission approved the project by a 3-2 vote, and the 2 commissioners that voted against the project indicated they could not make findings related to view impact. Following the Planning Commission meeting, the neighbors to the east at 82 Granada Drive emailed the commissioners stating that they wanted to allow for the Gerbers to have the original non-clerestory windows on the east elevation to allow them to have their preferred window design. And this original design included 2 windows on the east elevation of the master bedroom that were each 2 feet 6 inches by 4 feet 3 inches. The January 11th, 2022 Planning Commission staff report includes a thorough discussion of permit amendment applications in general. And staff is happy to answer any questions you have about permit amendments or the process for reviewing them. 2 permit amendments have been previously approved for the project. Both of these were approved at staff level. In September 2020, a permit was amended before the issuance of the building permit. And subsequently in July of 2021, a permit amendment was approved while the project was under construction. During the construction of the project, the applicants made several changes to the exterior features and the size of the project without notifying the town and providing the planning and building department with revised plans. Planning staff became aware of these changes and determined that the changes required an application for a permit amendment and that such application would need approval by the Planning Commission. The applicants, Chad and Sarah Gerber, submitted a permit amendment application on December 2nd, 2021, requesting retroactive approval for the modifications that had been made. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 11th, 2022. As part of the hearing, the Commission discussed the proposed 11 modifications and if the Planning Commission could still make the required design review findings for each of these changes. All 5 commissioners stated that they could make the required design review findings for 10 of the 11 modifications. And 3 of the 5 commissioners stated they could not make the findings for the proposed second-story bay window because of view and privacy impacts. Planning Commission directed staff to return to the Commission with appropriate resolution that reflected this direction. On February 8, 2022, the Planning Commission adopted a resolution approving the permit application with the exception of the proposed bay window on the upper level. As mentioned, 2 appeals have been filed. Appeal 1, filed by Mark Stolman and Christine Martin Stolman of 82 Granada Drive, was filed on February 8, 2022. This appeal requests that the Town Council reverse the decision of the Planning Commission and deny the modifications that were approved by the Planning Commission. The Stolman stated in their appeal that they would withdraw the appeal if the Gerbers did not file an appeal. On February 18, 2022, the second appeal was filed by Chad and Sarah Gerber of 78 Granada Drive, and this appeal requested that the town reverse the Planning Commission's decision of the Commission denying the bay window and approve this addition of the upper level bay window. The site plan on the left is the approved site plan, and the site plan on the right is the proposed site plan. The length of the dining room on the lower level was extended 3 feet, approximately 3 feet. This resulted in the rear setback decreasing from 74 feet 6 inches to 71 feet 8 inches, where the required setback is 25 feet. The setback to the eastern property boundary has not changed, and the project continues to meet the setback requirement of the zoning district. The permit amendment includes a proposal for additional floor area. This includes approximately 160 square feet, of which 54.5 square feet is proposed to the lower level in the dining room, and approximately 105 square feet is proposed to the upper level. As mentioned, the length of the dining room was extended by 2 feet 10 inches, and the width was also reduced by approximately a foot. This results in just over 54 square feet of new floor area. Now, the existing bedrooms 1 and 2 were extended 2 feet 6 inches, and this change resulted in approximately 91 square feet of additional floor area. And in addition, the window seat in the master bedroom adds 14 square feet of floor area. Since the Planning Commission did not approve the bay window, they did not approve that additional 14 square feet of floor area in the master bedroom. These next several slides include both the approved elevations and then shows the changes that have been made to each of the elevations. This is the approved north elevation, which is the rear elevation. And this slide shows the various changes that have been made. The second story bay window was added. The bay window includes 3 windows, 1 large window in the center, and then 2 smaller windows on either side that are oriented to the side. This window extends 2 feet beyond the wall plane, and it includes a seating area. The chimney has been removed from the rear elevation, and in place on the lower floor, a new window was added. The sliding glass door on the rear elevation was increased in length approximately 4 feet. And in addition, the vinyl siding and stucco on this elevation has been removed and is proposed to be replaced with hardy plank siding. This elevation shows the approved east elevation, which faces the neighbor at 82 Granada Drive. And this shows the proposed changes, or the proposals, which are all the changes that have been made. Again, the bay window includes a smaller window that is oriented towards the east. In addition, a new window was added to the dining room. The length of the dining room was increased approximately 2 feet 10 inches, and the slope of the roof was changed from a roof that slopes up to a roof that slopes down. And this change did result in the height of the dining room decreasing. And in addition, the change was made to the walkway over a portion of the east elevation. The original approval was a trellis feature that had a depth of approximately a foot, and it was modified to an overhang with a depth of approximately 5 feet. This is the approved west elevation, which faces the neighbor at 74 Granada Drive. And this is the proposed that includes the various changes. A window was added to the west elevation on the dining room. Again, this shows the change to the roof from a roof that sloped up to a roof that slopes down. And you can see the window that's oriented to the west of the bay window. In addition, the vinyl siding and stucco was removed from this elevation and is proposed to be replaced with hardy plank siding. And these lower level awning windows were approved as part of a prior permit amendment. These next several slides are pictures taken both within the residence and from outside. The picture on the left is taken looking out the bay window in a northeasterly direction. And the picture on the right is taken looking out the bay window in a northwesterly direction. These pictures were taken outside of the residence looking towards the bay window. On the left is looking in a southerly direction, and the picture on the right is looking in a southeasterly direction. And you can see the residence at 82 Granada in this picture. The picture on the left was taken standing on top of the dining room roof looking west. You can see these are the existing bedrooms. And this is the portion of the residence that was pushed out 2.5 feet. And this portion is now flush with the rest of the addition of the master bedroom. The picture on the right is of the rear looking south. You can see one of the windows that was added. You can also see the outline of the chimney that has been removed. The picture on the left was taken from the existing bedrooms 1 and 2. The blue line shows the area that has been extended. Again, this portion was pushed out 2.5 feet. And then the picture on the right shows the dining room. The dining room was extended 2 feet 6 inches, and you can see one of the new windows that has been added. The slide shows the design review findings. In reviewing the proposed permit amendment application, the town council should evaluate whether the modifications to the project affect the previously adopted design review findings that were made in the resolution approved by the Planning Commission. The slide shows the various attachments to the staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about any of the specific attachments. And in addition, several late correspondences were submitted following publication of the agenda. And all of these items have been saved to the town's webpage and are also available by going to the agenda as well. There are 5 different options available to the council as outlined on this slide. And as is the practice for all appeal hearings, staff has prepared a draft resolution that denies the 2 appeals. The draft resolution has been prepared only for purposes of advancing the project in a timely manner, if that is the option that the council chooses. The inclusion of this resolution is not intended to indicate a staff preference or a recommendation in the town council's consideration of these 2 appeals. And this slide shows the order of proceedings. The order for appeals is slightly different than a typical public hearing. There will be a presentation by both of the appellants, which will be 10 minutes. And then there will be public hearing for other members of the public, followed by rebuttal and closing comments of the 2 appellants. That concludes staff's presentation, and both Adam and myself are available for any questions.
At this point in time, are there any questions from staff? Okay, with that, if there's none, and thank you, Martha, for mixing the screen. It's easier to see everybody at one time. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over. Do you know who's going to speak first?
Yes, appellant 1 will speak first, which is Mark and Christine Stolman.
Okay, and I believe they have 10 minutes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Christine and Mark, and then Rebecca will start her timer.
Yes, thank you. I did set up the timer with the process outlined by Martha, and as each appellant speaks, I will start the timer when they begin to speak.
Thanks. My eyes are kind of going, so it's hard to see, so I'll just rely on you when the 10 minutes is up. Thanks.
Oh, it will turn, I believe, yellow at a certain point and then red when it's about to expire.
Okay. So Christine, if you and Mark want to go ahead and start, and then again, Rebecca will start the timer. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. I'm here. Can you see me or just only hear me?
If you share your camera, you should be able to be seen. I think your camera is off.
There I am.
You're ready to begin your presentation. I will start the, okay, timer starting.
Thank you. I want to thank Mayor Casissa, Vice Mayor Lee, Council Members Beckman, Monken, and Ravasio and staff. We appreciate your attention to detail and the time you devote, not just to this matter, but for many issues of our lovely town. This is very stressful for me and Mark. We've never been involved in anything like this. It takes the attention from our aging parents, from our children. We are here because the Gerbers filed an appeal. We did file an appeal first, but that's because we knew we would be out of town attending my father's memorial service. So we are here today. We're asking for the upper story to be removed. That would and set back. That would take care of the window seat. We have tried to be nice to the Gerbers from start to finish, and in fact, we were nice again in the difficult process. We invited Mr. Gerber into our home 3 times to see our remodeled home. And Mr. Gerber even went into our house a 4th time with our contractor without our permission when we weren't home. This kindness has not been repaid. We've We welcomed them again when they came to us with plans. We could see their remodel would be different because they would be over 800 square feet on their second story. And it was higher than any in our neighborhood, including all the way to the top of the hill. Their bedroom extended back, and we knew we would have privacy concerns for our ground floor living. In our remodel, we got everybody's approval, people that looked at it, people around us. We didn't take anything from anyone. And we proceeded peaceably. So they came over and we asked a few questions about setbacks and the like, and they were told they didn't need to do any of those things, not even engineering, since they would be going straight up. We were surprised. And although they promised us plans, they never got back to us. We first learned from a text about the story poles from Sarah. She said they were going up. We could get a view. And in fact, they did go up and we could see it blocks the ridge line. And I think Martha covered pretty well exactly what happened. We got a compromise decision of a reduction in the ridge line, which really didn't do what we hoped it would. It didn't restore any of our ridge line or our Mount Tam views. And the vote was 3-2 in the Gerber's favor. We didn't feel it was enough. It didn't give us what we needed, but we were nice. We agreed to the compromise. We waived our appeal rights and we wrote a nice email wishing them the best and allowing them to have full-size windows. And I'd like to show you a copy of those, a couple of those windows, because I've been wondering why these windows are so far forward onto our patio. And I was wondering if Martha could pull up the windows that I sent, since for some reason on my Zoom, there's no share screen. If she could pull up the two photos that I sent. The one that's especially important is the one of Phil's that showed the story poles. And I don't know if she's able to pull that up. Thank you. The reason I'm so confused is because the story poles that we were allowed to view were set back behind the fireplace. We didn't have story poles that showed us the extent of their master bedroom. So we never knew. We never knew. I always wondered why I was so confused. Those windows were so far forward. And now I know it was the story pole placement right from the get-go. I kept looking at it. This whole thing was so far forward that it just never made sense to me. If you could show the second photo, please, Martha, I would really appreciate it. So were these story poles in the wrong position? I don't know really what happened. I do know that they were behind the fireplace, and now it's 2.6 inches further to the north and the east. We never saw the story pole. We did not know how it would impact us. And I do recall Chad asking that they be brought down. So this is looking at it now. This is their fireplace, a small part of it, but it still extends all the way over to the fireplace. So I think that they still did go out to the eaves, not by much, just by 6 inches. But remember, we had a reduction of 6 inches and we had to live with that. I recall Chad being insistent they be removed prior to the commission settling things. He said it was for safety reasons. I don't know. It was always very confusing to me. We were never given plans we could look at, just email elevations. I just know that every turn, these types of omissions have not been in our favor. And no one has these windows looking on their patio or primary bedroom. I couldn't find any of these things. I couldn't find a window seat looking out on people's patios, driving through Mill Valley, Sausalito, or the Rose Lane subdivision, where they even have extra accessory dwellings for people. No one in our neighborhood has one. Dan O'Brien doesn't have one looking onto her property. And that is why it invades privacy with sight and sound. It's more than a perception. That's why they're not done. They repaid our kindness, basically with a slap in the face. They built a larger addition, expanding the upper story along the ridgeline, taking more. They never applied for a process of permits or story poles with which they were well versed. They didn't involve the planning department. They hung a bay window just off our patio. Their lawyer said that they had misguided advice from their architect and their contractor. If we'd known the full scope of the project, we would not have granted these windows, period. The story polls did not let us see the full impact of their master, and how that happened, I cannot tell you. But that is a real slap. Take the view, the privacy, keep the windows. If it was truly a mistake, you think that they would offer something, but they really haven't. We contacted the planning department on October 23rd. The notice was posted December 10th, and we met with Adam Wolf. He stressed how important these processes were. We agreed. According to him, they never had this egregious of a building permit violation. And so they needed to proceed cautiously, slowly, make sure they did everything right. Processes were important. When the Gerbers asked for after the fact, they gave us another slap in the face. They distributed a misleading letter about us in the neighborhood, soliciting support for the unpermitted illegal construction. The support they garnered was far from our properties, and none addressed the unpermitted work. We asked the Planning Commission to deny only the bay window because we thought we could just get on with it. And the Planning Commission agreed. In their final attempts to have a window seat, that is not even a county norm. I invite you to drive around and try and find one with someone hanging over their patio. It's about sight, it's about sound. They came up with another brilliant idea, the fence. Let's just wall them in. We'll erect a higher fence to cover the window seat. Mark is going to talk about it, and I want to thank you for your time, and I especially want to thank Martha. I know this has had to be a trying time for her, so thank you very much for all of your attention to these many details.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. I want to start by pointing out that bay window seats are different from other windows because they stick out from the wall, and they are places where people can sit and watch outside for longer times than normal windows. This particular bay window seat sticks out near our master bedroom, and people can sit and watch my wife and I when we are inside our bedroom, as we go across our patio, and as we get in and out of our tub. It's creepy to have people sitting there staring at us as we come and go from our bedroom. The Corte Madera town ordinance doesn't use the word creepy, but I think if it's creepy, it's significant. The word significant is defined by Google as sufficiently great or important to be worthy of attention, noteworthy. It is defined by the Oxford Learner's Dictionary as large or important enough to have an effect or to be noticed. Dictionary.com says it means important and deserving of attention, of consequence. If people are sitting on the window seat, watching my wife and I from inside our bedroom, across our patio and into our tub, that is sufficiently great or important to be worthy of attention. It is large and important enough to have an effect or to be noticed, and it is of consequence. So it is significant by every definition of the word. When the Gerbers built that bay window seat and all the other 10 additions without a permit, they didn't just build an inch or even a foot. They built 2 feet 6 inches on our side of the house and 2 feet 10 inches on the other side. The additions are large, noticeable, deserving of attention, noteworthy, so they are also significant. At the Planning Commission hearing, we only asked for removal of the bay window seat. But we think you should consider acting with respect to those other additions because they are also significant by every definition of the word.
Okay, that was.
Am I done?
Yes, that was the 10 minutes.
Oh, I have a little more if I'm allowed, but. The Gerbers hired attorney Elizabeth Breckus.
Well, Amy.
Yeah, I think you can reserve your time. You will have time in rebuttal. And so I'm going to recommend that you address it at that point.
Thank you.
Freddie, you're mute.
Mayor Kaziza, you're on mute. Yeah.
Thank you. I think Rebecca put me on mute because I think I was rustling papers. So at this time, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Chad and Sarah and give them 10 minutes also. And Rebecca will start the timer when you guys start speaking or doing your presentation.
Okay, perfect. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Great. Yeah, hi, I'm Sarah, and this is Chad Gerber, and we live at 78 Granada. We thought we would really start with the background on what got us here today. Are we sharing our screen?
We're going to share a screen here.
Okay. So you don't just have to watch my face. Lovely. We wanted to start with the background on what really brought us here in front of you tonight. We moved to our home in 2016, and we quickly fell in love with Corte Madera. We immersed ourselves in the community. And then in 2017, our family grew. We realized that if we wanted to stay long-term for many years to come, we'd really need some changes to our home to support the growth that we were having. So we embarked on a remodel to allow us to stay long-term. In 2019, we took our plans to the Planning Commission design review. We received approval and moved forward with construction. As construction was underway, we found improvements that could be made and afforded, or changes that needed to be made as we got into the walls and beams of our 1950s home. So fast forward through a pandemic, material delays, budget constraints to 2021. So we were finally finished with the rough framing phase. We scheduled the building inspector over on September 20th. He reviewed our changes and he told us to get him updated structural and architectural plans for approval. We began the updates with our architect and engineer. And then on October 27th, over about a month later, we were notified by the planning department staff that our changes actually needed a permit amendment through the planning department, and we were issued a red tag. We were very surprised and, frankly embarrassed. We thought we were following all processes, and the building department had never indicated that we were not. Like many residents, we are first-time home buyers and remodelers here in Corte Madera. The Stolmans continue to state that we should not be able to make any of these changes before you because they're unpermitted. Throughout the past few months, multiple residents have come to us and stated that they've had red notices, or their neighbors have too, for unpermitted work. This just goes to prove that navigating codes and regulations is a lot for those of us doing this work for the first time. We agree, we clearly, as noticed by the planning department, we're not following permit rules. However, that has no effect on the decision of our changes before you today. The Stolmans were educated on this by the Commission Chair Chase at our last meeting, that unpermitted notices do not preclude residents from moving forward with construction on their homes if they follow the notice guidelines, which once noticed, we have been doing just that. We appreciate that Corte Madera is not a punitive community as the Stolmans wish it to be, but one that's assisting and rectifying, and that is what we immediately did. Then on November 5th, the planning staff notified us that the Stolmans at 82 Granada had a complaint about our bay window seat, stating westerly view impacts and privacy concerns. We did reach out to the Stolmans on November 8th, notifying that we were made aware of the concerns. We shared the details of the new bay window, which was less obstructive than the original chimney, and that it had no more view impact into their yard than already approved or original windows. We offered to have them over to view our home because we truly believe that if they could see from the view, they would actually agree, but they refused. We then offered to pay for and erect a lattice on top of the fence for their perceived privacy, and they declined that, stating it wasn't acceptable visually. So we moved on to the Planning Commission meeting here in January, where we received the 5-0 vote in approval of the 10 changes and a 2-3 vote denying the bay window seat. Unfortunately, we don't believe that we received an unbiased review of the bay window. During the walkthroughs with some of the commissioners, 2 of them mentioned previous issues with the Stolmans about 2019 project items. And during our meeting, multiple commissioners continued to reference it, which the meeting nor the amendment was even about. So we're really asking the council to please today look at the facts and make a fact-based decision. So we are appealing the change number 1, which is the addition of the bay window seat. We do believe that it matches architectural views in our area. Many homes have bay windows. Our original on the first floor had it, which is exactly what we matched for the second floor. There's less view impact with the original chimney that was in place, and there's no more significant privacy impact onto 82 Granada. If we break down the concerns, the first one of westerly views and bulk, the bay window seat is less obstructive. You can see on the left with the chimney removed and the bay window seat inserted, they are not losing anything that they had. In fact, they're gaining more views. The privacy concerns that they're mentioning, there's no additional vantage point towards their property. On the left, top left, these four windows in red are the approved windows. They're all operable. You can open them. You can have the same vantage point onto the property, same as our bay window, and the same angle when they open. The two green ones were the original picture windows with some views onto their yard as well. The picture on the top right are the two windows that face the Stolman's yard already, with the same views that the bay window would show. When you did the walkthrough, you saw the two pictures below showing that the view in green that is already in place is very, very similar or the same, no significant change as the bay window. And in fact, the red circled window that was approved to be installed is actually closer to the Stolman's, and with it being operable, opening, the same angles could be said as the bay window. There's no significant impact when a view's in place. You heard Mr. Stolman, and you've seen throughout all of his documents, he continues to talk about the definition of significance and including noteworthy. If we look at these two, you have on the right our already approved and installed window view. On the left, you have the view from the bay window. This cannot be noteworthy, and it is not a significant impact or change. It's already in place. There's also no significant impact when you talk about depth and shading. In an email from Ms. Stolman in November, in yellow, they actually stated the concerns weren't with the master bedroom. Now we just found out, after our last hearing, that they do have concerns with their master, which Mark just mentioned as well. On the left is the picture that they submitted from their bedroom. You can see the bay window, but all of you, when you viewed from our home, you saw this picture from the middle bottom. The view back towards the house is very different. You couldn't tell if one person was in there or five, or if they're getting out of a tub. It's very different. And that's why we really had hoped they would come and see the views and really could see that it's not an impact that's significant. I also want to remind everybody that this is supposed to be a seat, right? It's supposed to be my space to read books and get away from my kids for a little while. And I will be facing the other way, looking at the green trees. I'm not going to face the Stolman's yard and stare at a fence. However, if I did, this is the seated position. Again, you're below their property line. It's not a significant impact. And even as Mr. Stolman said, you have extended periods of time when it's sitting. So I would be extended sitting below that view line. We also want to point out that precedent has been sent by commission approval of similar views. And as our attorney did point out, this view is not unusual for urban home expectations. In fact, in June 2014, the Stolmans took their design and variance permit for their remodel. The charming home that they had is on the left. The new window on their second story is in the middle, and the picture that the Stolmans sent in on the right gives direct views into our backyard, our patio, and our entertaining area. If that view passed finding 3 and is not significant, we really don't understand how this bay window view is considered significant. So to quickly go through the appeal of the 5-0 commission approvals, they did appeal the 10 items. These were never concerns to them previously. So on February 11th, when we got their appeal, it really felt like an ultimatum. It was, if you appeal the bay window, we're going to appeal all 10. However, if you don't, we really don't care about all 10. So they appealed number 2, addition of the window. This is the same window that was approved already by the commission. We just put it next to it, and it's below their property. They appealed number 3, window on our backyard. Again, it's below their property, no impact to them. They appealed the covered walkway, but this was already approved. We just extended the overhang. It is below their property with no impact to them. They are appealing the removal of our chimney. This we didn't think we could do due to budget. Once we got into construction, we could. It's a greener option. It reduces the bulk and the blockage view that they're complaining about. And in essence, their appeal is asking you to make us re-erect our chimney, which would then have more blockage views. They are also appealing the slope of the dining room, which would decrease the height by 4 feet. This also feels like a contradiction to their concern about height and blockage. It's also below their property, no impact to them. They're appealing the pitch of the roof on the west elevation. We needed to do this for structural support and safety. This is going to be our daughter's room. And when we got into construction, the beam was actually sagging. Again, it's a 1950s home. Unfortunately, we had to replace that and the pitch came up. Again, the pitch did not extend past what their view that they had prior with the chimney was in place. And this is on the opposite end of the yard from the Stolmans. They are appealing number 8, removal of our vinyl siding and stucco on the north and west elevation. We already have that, the hardy plank appealed for the rest of the entire house. It's the one section that wasn't done. It doesn't even face them. It faces, it should be 74 Carroll. She sent multiple letters of support. This is not of an impact to them. They are appealing number 9, the length of the dining and the bedrooms. You know, the dining room again is below the Stolman's property, not an impact to them. The bedrooms are increasing the length to match the existing first floor length that's already been in place. So not changing any of that footprint. The approved length of the adjacent bedroom, you can see in this bottom left picture, is already at that bumped out amount. So we are just matching what has already been approved or already original.
Okay. That was 10 minutes.
Goes faster when you're not here.
Thanks. We appreciate the time and also your presentation.
Yeah.
Then Rebecca, if you can nix the presentation so I can bring back everybody or see everybody. Thank you. So at this point in time, let me go ahead and open it up for any questions of staff or either the Stolmans or the Gerbers. Does any of the town council members, anybody have any questions? No questions? Okay. With that then, as there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead at this point in time, open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this topic? I don't see any hands raised. Rebecca, did we get any emails in versus tcmmmail.org?
Thank you, Marcus. I'm not seeing any emailed public comments, but I do see a raised hand now.
Yeah, let's go back. If you can bring Phyllis over, please.
Okay, Phyllis, are you able to unmute yourself?
Go ahead, Phyllis.
Begin speaking. I will start the timer.
Good evening, everybody. I've been dealing with, I'm speaking as a resident now and not a member of the Planning Commission. I've been aware of this for 7 years, and I can only call it a French farce. And in case you don't know what a French farce is, I'm just going to give you 3 very fast explanations. Highly exaggerated improbable situations, use of ridiculous behavior, and instances of miscommunication and or misinformation. I mean, we've had more than 3 acts. And each time it comes up, something changes. But I would like to add one thing as you consider this tonight. Findings 3 and 4 are the ones that are mentioned. You have copies of all of the findings in your packet. I personally think that finding 1 is the one that should be attributed to it. And I'll read as fast as I can why. Finding 1 says the project conforms with the general plan, any applicable specific area of community plan, master sign plan, and all provisions of the zoning ordinance. And under the general plan policy LU 2.8, my reasons are 5.3 residential design guiding principles, quote, the elevation and analysis of new or expansion projects must balance the needs of the homeowner with potential neighborhood impacts affecting views, sunlight, privacy, and safety. By the way, I'm discussing only the bay window. 5.6, goals, policies, and implementation programs for community design. Policy CD-4.4, limiting the impact of a second story on short and long range views. And policy CD 2.5, quote, a view is a scene from a residence and or its active use area, such as yard or deck, and includes both upslope and downslope scenes. Under the zoning ordinance, my reasons under 18.30.010, the purpose of design review, part 3, quote, to ensure that the location and configuration of structures do not necessarily block scenic views from other buildings. And 18.30.070 required findings, the project will not significantly and adversely affect the view, sunlight, privacy of nearby residents. To sum up, I urge the council members to turn down both appeals. This farce has gone on through enough acts and no more acts are needed. We have to move on to other things in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this topic? And Rebecca, do we get any emails in?
No, we did not receive any emailed public comments on this item.
So I thought I saw a hand raised for a second. It's a phone number, maybe not. Okay, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and close out public comment, and we're gonna give the.
Oh, it's back.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, and I don't, oops, it just disappeared again.
Oh.
Yeah, so it looks like it was flashing for a minute.
It is, I'm not sure.
Do you want to try to bring them over and see if they want to speak?
Okay, I'm asking the caller to unmute.
I do want to speak.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I apologize, your hand was waiting. Go ahead and start, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, but before you do that, is there a way that I can appear on screen and you can see me?
I believe if you can just turn your camera on and turn the video on.
No, I would have to move the attendee over to the panelist view, which we don't have a practice of doing, but if I will defer to the council.
Why don't you go ahead and do it if you feel more comfortable that we can see the video on it. Give Rebecca 1 minute, please.
Thank you.
Rebecca's working on it.
I did transfer the attendee over.
Okay, there you go. We can see you now, so go ahead and get started. And Rebecca will start the timer.
I don't see myself, but I'm sure I'm here. All right, my name is Steve Stein. I live at 94 Granada Drive. I'm a 37-year Corte Madera resident. I've spent a number of years when I first came here on some town panels, and now I'm involved with just my neighbors, and we have a community organization. I know the Gerbers and I know the Stolmans. I was aware of what the Gerbers were attempting to do, and the record will reflect that I sent a letter supporting their project. I learned that back in 2000, I guess it's 19, that there was an issue about views. I didn't see any of that myself, but what I was very pleased to learn was that a compromise had been reached, and that the Stolmans had decided that they would forego whatever it was that was concerning them about their views. I was very pleased and very impressed by that happening. And it also showed that the town had done a wonderful job mediating and working the process. So my concern, because I'm a student of process and I'm a student of precedent, my concern is that in the context of compromise, changes were made after the permits were granted in violation of the permits, and that certainly the contractor and the architect understood that what they were doing was to build in a way that had not previously been authorized. I do not want to see Corte Madera to be one of those towns where the architects can say, or the contractors can say something like, don't worry about it, get the permit, but we'll put in things that are not permitted. What should have happened was that if changes needed to be made, permits should have been requested, and they were not. And I believe that should be considered as part of the decision making. It doesn't come down to levels of the staff makes its recommendation, the planning commission makes its recommendation, and either side doesn't like what the planning commission did, can now go to the town council, and then the whole idea is start it all over again. I think that, and I ask that the precedent not be honored where changes are retroactively approved, where they were done intentionally in violation of the permits. I urge that both appeals be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time and your comments. And with that, I do not see any more hands raised. And again, I assume, Rebecca, we didn't get any emails in.
We did not receive any additional comments via email, and I am not seeing any additional raised hands.
Thanks. So I'll go ahead and close out public comment. And at this time, what I'll do is bring it back to the Stolmans. And Martha, how much time are we giving them for a closing statement?
5 minutes.
Thanks. So Christine, you and Mark will have 5 minutes, and Rebecca will start the timer when you begin speaking.
Give me just a moment to toggle down to the rebuttal section.
And Mark, you're good because we can see you.
The Gerbers actually are first in the rebuttal section. It switches.
Okay, I apologize for that. So if we can get Chad and Sarah brought over.
They should be in the panelist queue.
And again, my apologies on that.
And I'm ready to start the timer whenever you're ready to speak.
All right, thank you. I want to remind everyone the scope of this meeting is to evaluate the revisions or do the quote, the Planning Commission improvements that were made to our design. Now, one of these improvements can be defined to have significant impact on viewer privacy from adjacent neighbors. On the contrary, each could be defined to have insignificant impact. In fact, most are completely out of view. None of them provide additional vantage points from our property onto adjacent properties. And collectively, the views from neighboring properties have been increased by the overall reduction in massing, specifically the chimney. I would also like to point out very quickly, just to go back to the planning department town meeting, that for those of you who watched it, Chairman Chase was very clear in his assessment that the bay window could not be considered to have significant impact and voted to approve. Commissioner Bundy, using deductive reasoning and past precedent, also concluded that the bay window could not be quantified as having significant impact and voted to approve. Commissioner Rizzo stated that he was unsure as to how to quantify significance and therefore deferred to the Stolmans' opinion as stating that they considered the impact to be significant. So thereby he empowered them with veto power over the bay window. Commissioners Bandel and Metcalf, who you just heard from, also deferred to the Stolmans' opinion, thus also both empowering them with veto power over the bay window. Additionally, I would like to request that Metcalf's recent comments be stricken. I think that there is bias there. She was on the Planning Commission and voted against our bay window, so I don't think that's relevant here.
Thank you. Did you have any other comments? I believe you still have some time left.
Yeah, Sarah does.
I think just to Metcalf, where she says, each of these times changes have come up, we've been going back and forth. And I think that's been our problem. We've been trying to follow the Stolmans to see what their issue is. And we have been trying to alleviate it, but it continues to change. So to that end, it isn't significant to them either. We really are trying. We really just want to look at the significance. I think going back to what Stephen just said as well is past precedent. If you deny the bay window based on the views, any other family that comes before us with a remodel that has a view at that least significance or less, you can't, or more, how can you approve those? You have to see what we're doing and you have to continue to do it, which is what Commissioner Bundy was trying to do. He was trying to utilize past precedent in these decisions so that all of us residents, we feel that it is a fair and unbiased process and decision. So again, we just didn't know that we should have it permitted. We're sorry that people keep thinking that, we did this purposely. We really didn't. And once we were told by Martha, and she can say, we stopped, we did what we were supposed to do. We weren't trying to slide this under anybody. And so we really just believe that it's not significant. We don't see it. And we would really just love to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. Amy, a quick question. Phyllis, if I can remember the very beginning of her statement, she stated she was speaking as a resident, correct? And not as a commissioner?
That is what I heard.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and go to the Stolmans. And then Mark, when you begin speaking, Rebecca will start the timer.
Yes.
And you have 5
Mayor Casissa, if I may just briefly, I wanted to go through this slide and delete the public comment line quickly. I think that'll shorten it up because the way it's appearing right now, the Stolmans can't see the time remaining. And
okay.
I'm just going to try deleting that and see if that helps.
Just give us a minute for the technical angle.
Yes. Let's see, is that working? No, it didn't update.
Do you just want to put up the
You know
regular?
what I will do? I'll put the simple timer up and I'll change it from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, and that will help. Okay, we'll go that route so that they can see the timer as well.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So Mark, when you start speaking, Rebecca will begin the timer for 5 minutes and you should be able to see it on the screen.
In rebuttal, we want to say first that we agree with Commissioner Metcalf that both appeals should be denied. We agree with Mr. Stein that both appeals should be denied. It comes down to basic fairness. We made a deal with the Gerbers, and then they violated it by building these unpermitted additions. And if they win, not only do we lose, but you, town council members, also lose, because all of the time that you spend hearing initial permit applications is wasted if people can just go and build whatever they want. And if the Gerbers win, everyone else in Corte Madera loses, because the permit process is undermined. And the process by which we are allowed to see story polls, which in this instance weren't even accurate, is undermined. And so everyone loses the protections of the Corte Madera ordinances that protect their privacy if we lose ours. I'm going to pass that over to Christina.
I just really want to thank you all. I know this is just incredibly tedious to hear this over and over. When we have filed our appeal, we really just wanted the Gerbers to feel like they had some skin in the game. Again, we didn't get to even see the full impact. The story polls were wrong. And if they're going to quote the commission, the one that I'd like to quote, besides Commissioner Metcalf and Bandel, is Dr. Bundy, who said if this project came before him today, he would not approve it. But we didn't get to see the project all. None of us did. And Dr. Bundy also disputed this continuous delusion of this fireplace, that it equals the bulk of their upper story addition. You can look at Phil's photos, go back and look at them, and then look at this and see what it takes out. It takes out from our backyard as well. We didn't even do those photos. And we cannot see their backyard from our window. Our previous neighbors, the Kalinowskis, came over and took a look. We can see their garage and the side yard. I don't think the bay window should be approved. I don't. We thought this would be the least painful thing and we would be out of here. I just want you to consider the fact that this remodel was not allowed to be seen in its totality. And we get to see it piece by piece. And that's how it's being approved, piece by piece. That just doesn't seem fair to me. We spent a lot of money on our remodel too, so that we could live in our downstairs. So when they talk about the upstairs, we don't even go up there. And they know that. When they invited us over to view their window seat, they invited me. They didn't invite Mark. They didn't even address the email to him. They just excluded him. Just excluded him because it would be difficult for him to get up there because he has mobility issues. I get it. They don't want him on the construction site. But they didn't invite them. They invited me. It's true. I didn't go over there. I felt I could see everything I needed to see. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you have a nice bottle of wine at home for later tonight. Thank you.
Mayor Casisa, you're on mute. Sorry.
Trying to do that so I don't rustle paper. I appreciate both parties' comments. I'm going to kind of close out that portion of the meeting. And then what we're going to get into is I'll bring it back to town council for discussion. What I want to do is split this into two parts because I think it's going to be easier to do. So if we can stick on first part, which is the applicant one, which is if we can look at this, which is the 10 modifications that the Planning Commission approved based upon their findings. If we can bring that for discussion, see if we agree or disagree with the Planning Commission. Again, excluding the bay window for now, we're gonna have that as part 2. So who would like to start us off, or do you want me to pick on somebody? Okay, with that, I'm gonna go to Charles then. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Bobby had his hand raised. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, we can go to Charles first. He was on the Planning Commission. I visited the site, spent a lot of time there. I have talked to staff members extensively about this, as they will all attest to, I'm sure. I'm sorry I've been taking up so much time. I spent a lot of time on this. And I've gone through all of this in detail, and I got to make sure I'm getting this right because this is incredibly complex. But we're dealing with the 10 items from the Planning Commission first, right?
Correct.
Stallman's appeal. So I can actually make the findings for those 10 items. So I would deny the Stallman's appeal.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to Charles.
Yeah, I don't know that it requires many words. I'd also like to deny this appeal.
Okay.
And as far as my past, I did vote to try to. It wasn't really it was to change the HIP originally, but that doesn't affect my view and understanding of it on council now. And so, I appoint council from the council position. I appoint planning commissioners, and I trust that they are experts at what they're doing and that they've reviewed it thoroughly, and that full body has already seen that, and I also can. So that's why I can stand behind their decision and not throw out the appeal, I guess. So.
Okay, thanks. And then Leela, and then we'll go to Eli.
Thanks, Fred. Yeah, I agree with what Council members Ravazio and Vice Mayor Lee said. As to those 10 items, I can make the findings.
Thank you. Eli?
Thank you. Yeah, same with me. I don't see any reason to disagree with the Planning Commission's findings regarding those 10 items. There was one item that I was a little unclear on, and I'm not even sure whether this has any bearing here. So the first question is going to be for Amy, and that's a question of whether original story pole placement has any bearing on tonight's findings. And then if the answer to that is yes, the question for Martha will be, were the original story poles reflective of what they were applying for at the time the original story poles were put up? I was just left a little bit unclear on the situation there by the presentations tonight. But again, I realize that the first question is for Amy on whether or not that actually has any bearing on this decision.
When you say original, are we going back to the initial application in 2018?
I believe so. So I believe we were shown a photo of story poles that I understood to be from the original 2019 application, unless I misunderstood what I was seeing.
That's I would just chime in that's correct. I'm happy to address the second part as well, but because that's actually one of the things I was hoping I could address in the record as well and add to the record in that respect, because we have a practice in the planning department implemented several years ago with respect to story poles that we make sure that we get those story poles certified by a licensed surveyor or engineer. And so we do have that in our file and the project file and the address file. So I do want to, from our perspective, that those story poles were installed correctly. Typically they do not show eaves because they're showing the building walls. So there is some difference in terms of where the eaves may be perceived when you're looking at story poles, but we try to communicate that to all involved who are looking at those. They're really intended to show the building walls, but again, most importantly, they were certified by a licensed engineer and surveyor. So hopefully that answers maybe that part of the question. I don't know if there's more to that you wanted
No, that does answer it. And so I think, I think especially in light of the fact that process was followed, I don't have any, I definitely can make the findings on the planning commission's initial findings as well.
Thanks, Eli. And I'm in agreement with all others also that have already spoken on town council. I too can make the findings and basically deny the appeal. Amy, do we need a motion on this to deny the appeal? Because I'd rather do this piecemeal. Okay.
Yeah.
And if I have this right, is this appeal number PL 22-0018? There's two numbers on here, but they're not connected with names.
That is correct. The appeal filed by Stolmans, it ends in 18.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go ahead and make the motion to deny appeal application number PL 22-0018. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Bob seconds it. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, I'll go ahead and call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan,
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Yes.
and Mayor Casissa.
Yes. So now we're going to go to the second part of this, which is the bay window, which is appeal application number PL 22-0022. We're going to go in reverse order. So Eli, I'm going to let you start it off.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. This is a very tricky one, as Bob pointed out. I think obviously the two main elements of the findings that we're grappling with here are views and privacy. And I think part of what makes this so challenging is that in a lot of cases, those two things are almost inherently in tension with each other. I think especially in light of what we saw with regards to the chimney being removed, the chimney had been, before it was removed, the most obstructive portion of that, of that area of the house, the most obstructive portion to those views. So it seems to me that the net result on the views has been positive, even with the addition of the bay window due to the removal of the chimney. The privacy is, I think, a trickier one, and I definitely like to hear my fellow council members' thoughts on that. The only thing that I wanted to add on privacy right now is I'm wondering, I always look for the opportunity to foster compromise. It pains me when we see neighbors, members of our community, perceiving their interest to be at odds with each other, because obviously this is a small town, we're all neighbors. I think we all feel it's important that we get along. I'm wondering if it's possible if we could potentially address some concerns on privacy there by maybe letting the Stolmans determine what fence height seems best. I know that right now the fence that's currently existing is lower than it could be. Again, I realize that they may appreciate the privacy ramifications of a higher fence, but they may also appreciate the views afforded by a lower fence. So I realize that that's a tough question for everyone there. But those are kind of my thoughts right now with regards to privacy regarding the bay window.
Okay, thanks. And before we go to Leila, Adam, you have a hand up.
Thank you, Mayor Casissa. I just wanted, when appropriate, I would also like to make another addition or correction to the record as well. So just I'll wait. I'll wait for the appropriate time to do so, but it's not directly relevant. If you'd like me to address it now, I can, or I can wait until after deliberation.
Does it have an effect on the deliberations?
It's related to a statement made by the Gerbers in their basically in their statements that they made during the appeal process. It relates to the violations that were issued and the adherence to those violations. So I might as well just say it, but it's not directly relevant. I did think it was important to correct the record in that regard. So would you like me to just clarify that now?
If that's okay with Amy, and I can do that, why don't we go ahead and let you clarify?
Yes.
If that's okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So yes, there was a statement made that the Gerbers adhered to all posted notices at the time that they were posted in terms of the violations We did issue notice of violations December 10th with respect to the work without permits. And indeed, just want to be clear that that is not the case, that they have adhered to all the posted notices. And so our code enforcement processes are continuing and will continue in parallel, irrespective of what happens tonight, but we're going to move forward with those processes on a separate track. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thanks. And then Martha, you have a hand up also.
Yeah, in regards to the comment that Councilmember Beckman just made about the fence height, the existing fence on the shared property line is actually just about 6 feet. The height is measured from the high side of the property, and the Stolmans provided pictures which were included as a late correspondence that show the height of that existing fence. I think it's at 5 feet, 11.5 inches. So it's just under 6 feet, which is the height that's currently allowed. The fence height can be increased up to 8 feet with permission of the adjacent neighbor if both parties agreed on a taller fence.
Okay, thank you. And with that, let's go ahead and go to Leela.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Beckman that the primary issue here is one of privacy. Because the window seat angles, right, then there is a portion of it that really is angling directly at the Stolmans patio. So I think that's the part of it that makes it a more difficult case. I did also visit the properties, and I think, where I'm leaning at this point is I think because the Stolmans are uphill from the Gerbers, I don't view, and given the height of that fence, you really can't see much of the window, and that means the window seat can't see that much of the patio, that I am at this point leaning towards being able to make those findings as to this item.
Thanks. Charles?
Once again, I'd like to stay with the Planning Commission's previous review, and I agree with it. And so therefore, I think that means that I would also deny this appeal.
Okay, thanks. Bob?
Yes, I spent a lot of time at the Stolman's house on the patio. Mr. Stolman uses that hot tub as a bathtub, essentially, and I clearly saw privacy issues with the bay window, and I think the Planning Commission was absolutely right. And I cannot make the findings at all for the proposed bay window. Actually, not even close on this one for me. I think it is really an issue, and I think we should absolutely deny the Gerber's appeal.
Thanks. And I can agree.
And I'm sorry, Fred, can I ask you one more thing?
Sure, go ahead.
When we're done with this, are we going to have more discussion about the overall issue? Because I had some comments I wanted to make about process on this.
Probably not. Probably not. No. We'll probably close this out. I was going to have a comment. I think I know what you're getting at. I was going to have a comment after. We need to close this out first. I discussed this with Amy.
I mean, after we close out this appeal, we'll have some more discussion about the overall topic.
I was just going to have a comment and then close it out. Let's get rid of this thing first, and then we'll figure it out.
Okay.
With that, I can agree with Bob also, because I visited the Stolmans also. And I think just me standing up, I could see where that bay window would invade the privacy of them. So I can agree with Bob and also with Charles with the Planning Commission and deny the appeal. So with that, go ahead, Eli.
Just want to note one possible typo to be corrected in the resolution number 23/2022 on the second page under design review required findings, unless I'm getting confused here, because I know sometimes these attachments can be like, nest eggs, but under design review required findings for what I believe is our town council resolution, it says the Planning Commission hereby makes the following findings. So that may just need to be corrected to the town council.
Okay. And then did you want to chime, you or Leland, do you want to chime in more on this topic with respect to the bay window privacy? It sounds like that's the main issue that's centered around.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I also, from the Stolman's patio, especially given, Mr. Stolman's mobility issues and the fact that he does use the tub out there as his tub, because I believe he said that the bathtub in their master bathroom is not ADA compliant and does not allow him easy entry. That does make a big difference for me, and it to me this is very close. But I think if I had to come down one way or the other, it would be erring on the side of sticking with the Planning Commission here and denying this second appeal.
Okay, thanks. Leila, did you want to add anything else?
No, I would just say I understand that this is a subjective, determination, and it's a close question. So I totally respect that people have different views, and certainly by my view, don't mean any disrespect to the Planning Commission.
Okay, thanks. So with that, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we deny appeal applicant PL 22-0022.
I'll second.
Thanks, Bob. Is there any other further discussion? Rebecca, go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan,
No.
Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Yes.
and Mayor Casissa.
Yes. So I'm going to close that out. Two things I want to bring up. One thing is I appreciate everybody involved with this, especially staff. I know this may be hard to do, and it's an old saying, over time, wound heals all wounds over time. So I'm just hopeful that down the road, both the Gerbers and the Stillmans can kind of put this in their rearview mirror and kind of get on with their lives and just act as neighbors. So I'd appreciate that. And the other thing also is for me, and I think, Bob, this may be along your lines. If not, I'll let you speak, is that we've become very process driven, I think, especially under Todd, which is a good thing. But I think also we have to recognize when we have gaps in process. And I think this appeal kind of for me, opened it up where we have a gap between planning and also the enforcement side of things, where there's no really consequences that can happen. And so I would like to see either the planning department, you have a lot on your plate, maybe you work with the Planning Commission and figure out how to close that gap on the enforcement side so that we're putting more teeth into consequences, especially when things get built and they're not built according to permit or according to plans. And there's no teeth or ramifications on the enforcement side. With that, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Fred, basically, I'm echoing very similar comment to yours. And I guess my question is, how do we ensure that this does not happen again? Okay, that is the big question I have for staff. God, I hate to say this. I've been doing this since 2007. I have probably sat through more appeals than anybody else in this meeting tonight and heard a lot of this stuff over the years. I have never seen anything like this. Never, not even close. And I think there is something we need to do to make sure that our process is followed in the future. And I would like staff to come back to us with whatever recommendations they have for that. I know there were fines, but clearly it really wasn't much of an incentive. The applicant here added 160 square feet without a permit. That's huge. Okay, that's big. I mean, as I think the staff used the word egregious in violation. I haven't seen anything like this. We need to ensure this does not happen again. Mr. Stein, in his comment, was alluding to this too. This sets a terrible precedent and basically says that you can do this, and you can't. You can't. And we need to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Related to that, and this is a question, I guess, for the town attorney, are there penalties for the contractor or the architects in something like this? And should there be? I mean, because somebody decided it was okay to completely rebuild an entirely new foundation outside of the plans and outside of the permit. Somebody had to draw that up. Somebody had to approve it. Somebody had to decide it was okay. Okay, and it wasn't just the owners who did this. Is there any ramifications for them, and should there be? Thank you.
I think that's a good question. I will reiterate what Adam said previously is we do have a code enforcement process that is on a different track. There are fines that are issued as part of the violations. I think we can take a look at those fines to see if they're appropriate and if they can be increased. We have to look at state law and what the state allows us to do. We could also look at whether we could attribute violations beyond that of the property owner to other, to a contractor or to an architect who did violate it. I think we'd have to do some research there to see what we can do. I mean, architects and contractors are licensed by the state. And so any disciplinary processes would be in the hands of the state. Both licensing boards do allow people to make complaints. Generally it is the person who hires the architect or contractor who makes those complaints, but it is certainly something we could look into is whether the town would want to send a letter of complaint to these boards. These are things that we can take a look at and maybe bring back some options to council in the future about other ways we can ensure compliance with our planning and building laws.
Thanks, Amy. I don't want to morph this. I'm sorry, Bob. I just don't want to morph this into a discussion at this point in time. But I think we need to go back to staff and Amy and look at two things. One, there was a definite breakdown in the process on the planning side. And then two, there's a gap between planning and then enforcement. And the third part of this is the consequences and the teeth we need to build into our ordinances or our processes if we can. Those are the kind of 3 points that I look at. And if you can bring us back something, we would appreciate it, and maybe sooner rather than later. Even though I know you have a lot on your plate, because I just don't want this to get too much out of control. So thanks, and thanks, Bob, for the comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll go ahead and move to 6B, everybody's favorite topic, which Todd is going to talk about, which is OPEB.
Okay, so I'll do my best from Cabo. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, but before I do, I think Daria wrote an outstanding staff report based on our OPEB liabilities. And for those that don't know, I will just a quick review. So OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. We call it OPEB. Back in the 2000s, just due to the unfunded liabilities that grew due to the benefits that cities and towns provide their employees at the time, we grew huge unfunded liabilities on this side. And so we're required now every 2 years to provide a report. This is the report before you now. We're asking you to accept the report. That's your only action being requested at this time. But really, when you think about OPEB, it's really a snapshot in time. And so this report goes back to June 30th of 2021. And as you know, this council has taken extraordinary efforts over the last 8 years to really manage this, to solve the problem, and really set up our leadership moving forward to fully fund our OPEB responsibilities. This liability, and we'll go through it, really has to be paid out, think about it, over the next 50, 60, 70 years. And so a couple key steps for us to start to control it. And I think Daria, this report's very complicated. Honestly, I feel like it's convoluted in some ways, but there are some key slides that can really explain how we came to this number and where we're headed and really the fiscal health of our town. And so we'll go through it thanks to Daria. But two things that we did, we reformed our retiree health benefits. So going back pre-2013, we provided lifetime medical benefits for our employees and their families in some cases pre-2013. And so that was a huge issue. And so we've since reformed that for hires after 2013 and 2015. And we also consolidated our fire department. And so that was really a huge driver moving forward and being able to get a handle on this. And so I'm going to share my screen and go through some slides, and then I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Let's see here. That's not what I wanted to do.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Todd, are you
that's
having
okay.
difficulty with something? Do you need me to share a screen?
Yeah, can you go ahead and I'm sorry, everybody. Can you share the screen? Can you go to slide 15 for me?
Of the
attachment?
The staff report?
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay, slide 15.
Yeah, page 15 of the attachments. Yes. Thank
This
you.
one?
Yep. Okay, can everybody see that okay? Okay, so a couple things we want to point here. So if you look at the breakdown right now, it's this middle square here. It's the actuarial accrued liability, the AAL. It's that middle box. If you look at our current employees, so when we think about, how do we come to the unfunded liability? Our current active employees are $1.3 million of liability. And the rest are retirees, $5.6 million. And so that's a total of a $6.9 million unfunded liability. So as of June 30th of 2021, our unfunded liability is $6.9 million. 1.3 of that's active, 5.6 are retirees. We currently have $4 million in our OPEB trust. And so when you subtract what we have in assets in the trust, 4 million subtracted from the 6.9, our current unfunded liability as of June 30th, 2021 is $2.8 million, or we're 58.7% funded. As you know, council approved a $995,000 contribution this fiscal year. So if you fast forward that to today, of June 30th, 2022, we're actually, our unfunded liability is $1.9 million with $5 million in assets, or we're 70% funded. So that's a way to look at it. So in just 1 year, current time, we've gone from 58% funded to 70% funded. Can you go to the next slide, please? Keep going, one more, go to 17. So again, this gives you a little snapshot in time. So when you go back to June 30th of 2013, that first column there, and you scroll down to the unfunded AAL, that was our unfunded liability, it's 14.796 million. That was our worst case scenario, 2013. So we had fire, we still had that benefit of retiree health benefits for employees as they retire. It was really out of control. And in 2013, we had $66,000 in a trust fund. That's all we had in assets. So basically we had no funding plan. We had a benefit that was really out of control. And we had a spiraling unfunded liability of 14.8 million. As you start to trend to 2015 to 2017 to 2019, you start to see us get control of it. So when you look at the actuarial value assets, can you show them that line item? I'm sorry, I don't have a control of the cursor. It's 66,000 here, yes. So this line here, you can start to see, from 2013 to 2015, we reformed the benefit, and then we started a funding plan as we had surpluses. So $583,000 in assets in 2015, 2017, 1.7, in 2021, 4 million. In 2022, that'll raise to $5 million, or in a 70% funding status. So we are trending in the right direction. Can you go to page, let's see, go to page 23? Actually, right here, this is another good one. I'm sorry, 18. Go 18. So this is another one that gives you an example. In 2013, you can see that was the highest unfunded liability. Again, that's where we had $66,000 in assets. Scroll forward to 2021, again, 59% funded, 4 million in assets. 2022, 70% funded, or $5 million in assets. Let's see, go to page 23. Okay, so this is a good page too. So how do you come? There's two ways to look at it. One is you have a $6.9 million unfunded liability. So you want to make payments, right? So that's what we're doing. We've been making contributions on an annual basis to really fully fund that. So we're at 70% status. The other discussion item is pay as you go. It's the last column here on page 23, pay as you go. And so pay as you go is, think about it, that's not any payments to the unfunded liability. That's to pay the cost of the current retired firefighters that were with the town pre-consolidation, our retiree miscellaneous employees, all of our active employees, and some of the council members that retired pre-2013. And so that number of a pay-as-you-go is $537,000. It's the bottom right corner there on this chart. How we break down to get to that 537, well, you can see the columns. The first one is miscellaneous, scroll down. We pay $262,000 to miscellaneous employees, $261,000 to fire employees. Keep it on page 23. Go, yeah, right there, that's fine. And we pay $15,000 to council members pre-2013 that retired, for a total number of $537,000. Long story short, this council, the town, is headed in the right direction. We currently, in our budget, have budgeted $500,000 for pay-as-you-go because of the contributions that we've been making to the fund. Right now, if we did not make another payment to the to unfunded liabilities on that side of the aisle, we would still fully fund because of interest on $5 million over the next decade. So we're really in a great spot. A couple of things that we'll probably discuss at this next budget hearing in May, June, will be a plan. Do we want to aggressively fully fund it and start to save some money on the pay-as-you-go, because we can start actually drawing from the SERP trust to lower this amount. And so there'll be some interesting and positive discussions of how we, move forward from an OPEB standpoint. But the bottom line, this is really good news. The next step for us to take as a town is to focus on Central Marin Fire Authority and Central Marin Police Authority to work with our partners in Larkspur and San Anselmo to build, because we've also done the pension trust, right? We approved the pension trust, but we approved the bonds. And so now you have that savings arbitrage annually. And that money for us is $800,000 annually of how we spend that money. Right now, we're on a track to use that savings arbitrage to fully fund our OPEB liabilities. We want to do the same thing for the JPAs, fire and police, right? We want to put those policies and practices in place as we enjoy those savings to put in policy what the town did. We want to do with police and fire. And so that's the work for our council members that are on both of those JPAs. We'll want to spend some time together to really formalize that plan for our partners to make sure that we take those positive steps for both of those JPAs. Because it's good that we've solved our problem now for the town. We need to make sure we do it for police and fire. And with that, I'll just stop right there. I'm happy to answer any questions or go over any slides that you may have. But really, this is a snapshot in time in 2021. I think we really need to think about today's numbers, which are really outstanding. The council has really made some positive steps.
Hey, Todd, really quick, because you have the slides up. On slide 17, if Rebecca can go back. Yeah, just out of curiosity, where it says present value of benefits, the actives went from, if that's 15 million down to 2 million, and the same thing where the accrual went from 7 million down to 1 million. Why did those drop so much?
So a couple of things. It's an actuarial report. And so the major part is when you looked at 2013, you still had that retiree benefit moving forward. And so when you take that really enhanced retiree benefit and you go out 40 years, it quadruples your numbers, your unfunded liability, right? It's a huge expense. And so between 2013 and 2015, we reformed that. And you can see the number, it almost cut that number in half. So that was the first major step that we made. Then when you go to 2017 to 2019, we started sharing services with fire between us and Larkspur. And it lowered our unfunded liability because of those savings and redundancy. And in 2019, we consolidated. So when we consolidated, you saw that number just drastically go down again. And then tied to that, we started really funding our trust fund, right? We started really making big contributions over the last 4 to 5 years. And so those three efforts really took it from a $15 million number, really a $22 million number, and it dropped it all the way to 7 in present assets.
Okay. And I think you mentioned this year we're probably like about 70% funded, plus or minus. How do we compare, which I think is great, how do we compare to other towns and cities?
So there were a couple cities. So San and Somo, I know there were a couple others in the county that never had that enhanced retiree health benefit. They had 3% at 50 formula. So their people could retire. So they had a pension problem, but they didn't have a retiree health problem. Those of us, 70 to 80% of the jurisdictions though in our county in the Bay Area did have this health benefit. And so when you compare us to others, we're probably in the top 2-3% in the Bay Area fully funded. I know that we're probably near the top in our county when you compare us per population, jurisdiction, and budget.
Thanks. Does anybody else have any other questions? I didn't mean to steal the thunder there. I just saw the slide and it was easier to key off of that. Any other questions? Yeah, Leela.
Thanks, Fred, and thanks, Todd. Appreciate your efforts to kind of get these costs under control. Just a question that's probably a very simple answer. It seems like if we're talking about unfunded liabilities being, the cost of healthcare basically for retirees, it seems like it would depend a lot on how long people live. And I'm just wondering if you could talk about how do they calculate what the unfunded liability is, and does it change over time depending on those factors?
It does, it changes. And so I don't have control of the screen. I'm sorry, can you unshare your screen, Rebecca? Can I try one more time? It might be. Sorry, you guys, I don't know why I'm. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't. Okay, so I'm sorry, I can't pull it up. It is in the report. So they look at everything. It's a great question. So for us, there's a slide that you'll see. It goes back actually to 2013. You can see where our payroll, our average payroll went from like 87,000 to 103,000. If you look at today's payroll in 2021, 2022, it's actually 81,000. So that's the first positive step when you think about MOU increases and how we look at how we do payroll. That's a huge driver, right? Because it starts with payroll. It also has to do with age of your retirees. That's a big one. And so there's a model there. We unfortunately had a handful of retirees pass away in the last 24 months. And so that has an absolute effect on it. The other one that has a huge effect, again, is really the reforms and then moving fire off of our payroll into the JPA. Those were just huge. That's why you saw those. So moving forward, what you'll see is really just healthcare costs. Is it 3%? Is it 5%? They go all the way to 7%, 12% in their projections going out. So they do they call it the Monte Carlo effect, and they do all the scenarios, and then they kind of take that average somewhere in the middle, and they go out 40 years. And so that's what this report is supposed to do. An actuary usually, and I'm happy to bring her in if you want, it's usually a 50-minute presentation, and she really just goes into numbers and dives into the details. I'm happy to answer any questions offline at our future meeting if you have that. But yeah, they look at everything. Right now, the town when you look at us, we're really strong in our projections as we move forward. We've taken a really conservative approach. I feel real comfortable about it. My concern now is starting to pivot, like I said, to the police and fire side, and really making sure, we're 50% responsible for fire and we're 33% responsible for those unfunded liabilities for police. And we need to institute those same practices, because we all have that opportunity right now. With we all did the pension obligation bonds, and so we have this 12-month window where we start to realize that savings. And so instead of giving it back to the member agencies, we need to pass those policies with those councils and make sure that we save that and we move that monies into the future funding.
Thanks, Todd. Any other questions for Todd? No, with that, I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this topic, OPED? I don't see any hands raised. Rebecca, any emails come in on this?
Thank you, Mayor Casissa. No, we did not receive any emailed public comments.
Okay, and I don't see any hands raised, so I'll go ahead and close out public comment. Todd, this is just an informational item, correct?
That's correct. I'm asking the council just to accept the report.
Okay, so is there a motion then to accept the report? Eli will make the motion. Is there a second? Charles will second. Any other further discussion? Okay, go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman?
Absolutely.
Councilmember Mongan?
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee?
Yes.
And Mayor Casissa?
Yes. Thanks, Todd. Great report. With that, we'll go ahead, go to business item 6C. This is a second reading and possible adoption of resolution number 24/20222, which creates a new position titled Building Inspector / Plant Examiner. And I think this is a second reading, so if staff can just give us a high level overview, please.
Yes, I believe Chris is on the meeting. There he is.
Hello there, council members, Mayor Casissa. Thank you for your comments at the previous reading, the staff report and the job description. And as you had stated, we are very motivated to make this an improvement with our customer service and even relate to some of the earlier agenda items and improving those as well, as far as our billing inspection process and plan review efficiencies.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and open up for public comment. Anybody from public wishing to speak on this topic? And Rebecca, did we get any emails in?
No, Mayor Casissa, we did not receive any emailed public comments.
Thank you. With that, I'll go ahead and close public comment and I'll bring it back to council. And we are looking for a motion to approve resolution number 24/2022. Eli, is that a comment or a motion?
I was happy to make a motion if nobody has any comments.
Thank you. Then your motion's good. And then Bob, it looks like you seconded it.
Second.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman?
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan?
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee?
Yes.
Mayor Casissa?
Yes. Hey, Chris, how long will it take you to hire somebody?
Well, the agenda resolution and report say June, July, but that would be really nice if we had someone before the end of summer. That would be ideal, but hopefully before that.
All right, thanks and good luck.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go ahead and move to council reports. Todd, would you like to give a town manager's report?
Yeah, just real quick, our next meeting will be in person, as you said, Mr. Mayor, and a hybrid. So I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody and being able to read a room properly. It'll be nice. We're working on draft budgets right now. Right now, our draft budget, we put a placeholder in for some of the climate action work that we're doing. And we're really excited to get that started. But our budget has the bandwidth to really to set aside $180,000 to $200,000 to really do the work of that climate action group. And so that's positive. With that in our budget and all the MOU increases, all the changes from this year to next year, right now Daria is projecting a $1.5 million surplus. And again, it's kind of our new norm as we pivoted out of COVID and we saw a lot of the economic development in our community. You know, our budget will look different positively moving forward. And so we'll have some discussions with council where we're going. I know that a lot of people have taken that as like, hey, you know, that we have a lot of money and we can spend it on whatever. And I just, you know, I know the council knows this, but to the community, you know, we're spending $20+ million over the next 3 years in infrastructure. We have some big infrastructure projects that we need to get done. And the good news is I think we have the revenue stream to do it. But most importantly, our general fund will support some of these really important efforts moving forward that we need to add to the general fund. So more to come there in May. We'll start to do some budget workshops, really taking the feedback from the council of sharing like what the service delivery is for each department, following our staffing of how we deliver that in our programs, and really following the money from department to department and doing some educational workshops, getting some feedback from the council, and then we'll then deliver the entire budget to you in June for review. And so we're really excited, you know, to telling that story. And I think it is an opportunity, you know, I think for a while, just to make some changes in our overall operation and service delivery moving forward. So we're excited to engage the council on that. And with that, I'll end my report.
Thanks. Any questions for Todd? No? Okay, we'll move to town council reports. Eli?
Great, thank you, sir. A few items, I will run through them. A couple weeks ago, attended a tour of the new pedestrian overcrossing by Larkspur Landing. Thank you, Charles, our TAM rep, for extending the invite to me on that. It was really cool to see the progress there. We had a MCCMC water policy subcommittee meeting. That committee is now starting to begin the work of drafting a report with, you know, recommendations for both long-term, you know, kind of county infrastructure scale projects, as well as smaller local like policies and ordinances that cities could potentially implement to conserve water. So that's moving ahead nicely. We had an MCCMC legislative committee meeting. This was a good one. We had Senator McGuire join us. So I've just got a few highlighted notes that I want to share with you. He's got so he's the majority leader now in the state Senate, in case anyone didn't know. So that's really good for us. He is leading a Senate climate package, and it's going to have a lot of dollars for climate adaptation projects, especially related to resilience for infrastructure, which is huge for us, right? We invested a lot of town resources putting together our climate adaptation plan, which is, you know, really the blueprint for attacking, you know, what I think is probably the most dangerous and expensive long-term problem that the town faces. So it looks like the state's beginning to really set up funding to help towns implement those sorts of plans, which is fantastic. PG&E, they are going to basically, he said they're going to try and force PG&E through legislation to underground the most hazardous 10,000 miles of above ground electrical service. We know, obviously, Corte Madera has a lot of very hazardous above ground electrical wires. So that is really good to hear, especially for our hillside communities. He's also going to work on making sure that when they do that undergrounding, they're sharing trenches with telecom in order to just save a little bit of money there. New funding, hopefully, for homelessness in Marin. I think for our home key folks and for Bob, I think that'll be especially something to keep an eye out for. This was big. He wanted to organize a special meeting between HCD, which is, you know, the state agency that is kind of the ultimate root of the RENA system, a meeting with HCD and Marin County, specifically council members. You know, they're going to do it on, I think, a county by county basis. But I think that's a fantastic opportunity for, you know, Marin County councils that have concerns about the RENA system to take those concerns directly to the top. So I was really glad to hear that he's putting that together, and I'll of course forward you more information on that as I get it. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight, Senate Bill 897 by Senator Wachowski about ADUs. I'm not going to give any subjective commentary on it because of my business, but Wachowski has a bill to let all ADUs go up to 25 feet tall. So I just wanted to put that on everybody's radar. So that is it for the legislative committee. We had a climate action committee meeting with Bob Brown. I think this was Bob Brown's second meeting, so he's doing great work there and integrating nicely with the rest of our committee. Central Marin Sanitation Agency went ahead and issued its pension obligation bonds. We had a kind of a wrinkle at the last minute, basically right before we were going to issue our bonds. Russia invaded Ukraine and the whole bond market just turned upside down, and interest rates just like went way outside of where we were hoping they would be. So we thought that we had really missed the boat, which was really unfortunate. And then it turned out that PFM, which was our basically financial consultant that was organizing the bond issuance for us, had a relationship with a separate kind of banking entity that had basically in their back pocket the ability to offer loan, basically the ability to purchase our bonds at a lower rate than what was the going rate on the public bond market at the time. So we had to pivot through a special meeting from doing a public bidding on these bonds to doing a private placement. But basically, instead of having to pay like a 4.5 or 6% interest rate, we were able to get it down to like a 3.6, which is where we were hoping to be even before Russia invaded Ukraine and the whole market turned upside down. So that was a really close shave, but we made it there, which was great. And then the last thing to share with folks, League of Cities North Bay Division had an executive committee meeting. We're having our first in-person division meeting in a long time on April 27th in Vallejo. So if you'd like to join that, just let me know and I'm happy to pass you the information, or I can send the information to Rebecca and she can forward it to folks. That is all. Sorry for the long report.
Okay, thanks, Eli. Bob?
We had a meeting of the Marin Wildfire Protection Association, and things continue to go great. And I just want to get this in front of staff, I guess. Mark Brown is more than willing to do a quick presentation at one of our meetings, and I would highly recommend we do it. It's just a 5 or 10 minute presentation about who we are, what we do, and what kind of progress we're making. So Todd, whenever we can fit it in. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. And just let you know, I have Mark coming and Ruben, Chief Martin, coming to the Mayor's Forum this month to talk at that also. Leila.
Thanks. The only one I have is we had a Casa Buena steering committee meeting and things are progressing along there. They ran into some unexpected problems with the roof, so they had to do some additional repairs there, but they are still hoping to move new residents in the coming months, and there will be an open house where anyone from the community can come view the property, and that will be, I just want to make sure I have the date right. Is that May 6th, Friday, May 6th from 1 to 3 p.m.
Thank you. Charles?
Politically, Eli and I have been hanging out in the same Zoom circles, so I don't have anything more to report beyond him. But I did want to mention that the Twin Cities Little League has installed a camera at Joe Wagner Field and will now be publicly broadcasting Little League games for the community to watch. They're incredibly fun, and I really recommend spreading the word and creating a culture around our youth sports. So there you go.
Thanks. And for me, I attended Twin Cities Disaster Preparedness Committee. And again, Mark Brown was there and he spoke regarding, I think, the 38-mile shade barrier that's going to stretch from Fairfax all the way to Corte Madera, which seems like that's one of the key components that they're working on, I think, for the upcoming year or so. I think they have to go through a environmental impact report. And then I also attended Age-Friendly Corte Madera, and mark your calendars, September 18th is where we're going to be honoring our senior seniors. And we're looking at doing that in person this year, which I think that's the first time in 2 or 3 years. And that's all I have to report on. And with that, we have the draft agenda for our next meeting, April 19th. 2 key things on there. One thing is we're going to have a couple of public hearings, but one is going to be an ordinance declaring an area to be in a very high fire hazard safety zone. And then the other one also has to do with our campaign contributions, which I think we discussed a couple of meetings ago. So those 2 are slated to be on our April 19th meeting. And with that, if there's nothing further to discuss, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. And we do not have an S2D, Sanitary District 2 meeting tonight. So again, I appreciate everybody's time, especially staff for hanging in there.